This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions, coming to you with a great article I found from Zero Hedge. And just to show you the severity of what's not really being covered that much about what's going on in the economy. This abandoned Macys is now a homeless shelter housing its former employees. Of course, titles alone catch my attention, so I wanted to dive in further. So let's kind of keep moving on and see what it's about. The Macys at Landmark Mall in Alexandria, Virginia. Alexandria, Virginia is actually, I used to actually live around there, and it's extremely important. Once I moved down to New York, I moved down to the northern Virginia, and Alexandria, Virginia is one of those prominent areas. And when you hear information like this, where it's now a holding place for homelessness, it should definitely give you some attention, definitely worth your attention, and definitely look at things in a different kind of manner. The Macys at this Landmark Mall in Alexandria used to be an iconic and historic building. In what is now undoubtedly a sign of the times, it has been converted to a homeless shelter until the property can be razed and its owner, the Howard Hughes Corporation, can repurpose the property and build something new at its location. Even more telling, this homeless shelter houses many of those who used to work at the very same Macys. Could you even imagine that? You actually used to work at Macys, and then you now, because you've lost employment, couldn't find anything else, you're actually living in there. In the realm of brick and mortar retail, the times are definitely changing. We have often on this site detailed not only the slow and painful death of brick and mortar retail as it's been occurring, but also how the value of once coveted mall property is disintegrated, and similarly how landlords of those properties now find themselves stuck between a rock and a hard place. Tenants are dropping like flies. Sales numbers used to help calculate rent are on the decline, and property appraisals have been underwhelming. This has led to an influx of abandoned property, not unlike the Macys in Alexandria, just sitting and waiting to be repurposed. It's just amazing. And we're supposed to be in the best times ever, and people delusional feel if they're feeling a pinch, they're told there's nothing going on. The Macys and Landmark Mall was the topic of a recent New York Times article detailing how a once historic landmark that is now abandoned has become a homeless shelter 15 months after it has had its last customers. What also makes it striking is that this is not too far from DC. The Macys now provides 60 beds, hot meals, and showers for families and for single men and women who are having trouble finding a place to live in a city with a scarcity of affordable housing. That is definitely true. It's got a lot of advertisement, so it takes a little while to me to click down a little bit. And what's also worse about this is that, again, just how bad it is. And really, it's not really being, and I understand they don't want to cover stuff like this because it will give people a form of panic. But you at least need to know this. The Landmark Mall was once at the vanguard of shopping. Opened in 1965, the mall housed the region's most fashionable department stores, Hecht's, Woodward, and Lothrop, and Sears and Roebuck. Boys came to buy their first suit at the Haberdasher, and teenage girls could get their shoes dyed to match the color of their prom dresses. Alexandria's former mayor, William D. Eliu, remembered playing the clarinet in high school band at the mall's opening ceremony. It was the economic engine of the city, he said. Landmark tried to adopt over the years, began as open-air shopping center and went through an overhaul in the 1980s to enclose the property. Like many other malls, however, it was gone the way of the buffalo. Eventually, the malls succumbed to retail's propensity to chase after newer, flashier spaces. Developers built larger malls with more upscale brands, nearby in Pentagon City and Tyson's Corner, siphoning customers away from Landmark. Landmark's original anchor store either has been bought out, went bankrupt, or are clinging to life like many in the retail business. Last year, 6,985 stores closed in the United States, a record number according to Coresight Research, a retail analyst and advisory firm. This year, retail is on the pace to close roughly 10,000 stores. And I've done a number of videos about this, the closing retail space and how it affects so many jobs. But now you're getting, it's just another adage of now places are now going to be repurposed or becoming homeless shelters. And this is fascinating because Macys is used to be one of those upscale places. And upscale stores for people to, buy and shop from, as we was covered in the article. In its final year's operation, Landmark's tenants included $2 stores and a tax preparer. Only the Sears is still operating. A lone blue inflatable figure danced on the store's roof. beckoning shoppers. I like the way they word this. Plans to revamp the property, including a 2009 effort to help it once again become an open-air shopping destination, failed, namely due to the property's former owner. General Growth Properties went bankrupt after the 2008 financial crisis. Subsequent to that, the mall was sold and those plans were scrapped. Landmark's current owner, the Howard Hughes Corporation, plans to tear down the mall and build a mixed-use space that can include offices, retail, and other attractions that are still being finalized. It could take many more years to complete the planning, permitting a construction process for such a huge project. It's a great piece of real estate, says Mark Bomish, the Senior Vice President of Development at Howard Hughes. The article tells several stories of individuals who are moving into this property, as it now become a temporary homeless shelter for a builder who is seeking shelter while it constructs a permanent location on the other side of Alexandria. Carlene Smith used to work at Macys and Landmark Mall, putting price tags on summer dresses, housewares, and the latest styles of shoes. On Saturday, Mrs. Smith, 57, returned to her former store, not as an employee or a customer, but as a resident. Now, could you imagine what the mindset that individual is dealing with, where we need to be more compassionate and really have an understanding of where we're moving to? The former Macy's in this vacant shopping mall outside Washington has been transformed into a homeless shelter. It's weird to be moving into this building. I used to work here, she said, inside the shelter's common room, which was once the men's department. It's called Survival. This is supposed to be in the richest country in the world, and we're having issues like this. Smith's memories of the building prior to its current state were fondly noted in the New York Times article, again just making even clearer how the property is long past its heyday and has made a full 180-degree turn for the worse. Mrs. Smith, the former Macy's worker, rests on the floor in the common room under a frayed gray green blanket. Before coming to shelter, Miss Smith has been living in a car and showering in a recreation center. I was tired, she said. Mrs. Smith, who worked at Macy's as a seasonal hire during the holidays 10 years ago, remembers the store fondly. On a slow day, she would try on makeup at the cosmetics counter and spray herself with samples of perfume. She said she could never afford to buy anything of her own. All I could do was admire it. As Mrs. Smith waited to move in her new room, the electricity cut out to a portion of the shelter and the staff set up battery-powered camping lanterns to light the way for movers. Volunteers bought crockpots with taco makings for dinner and put together goodie bags for children staying there. We got children there as well. You can see, looks like they did some pictures of it as well. And you can see right here. For many of the current residents of the shelter, what has happened is nothing short of shocking. Keith Ham, 43 years old, who has been living in the shelter for about 3 months, said his family did not believe where he was moving. They say Macy's at the mall, and I say, for real, Macy's at the mall. We detailed the glutton retail space in an early May article that we published, noting the American shopping mall, the centerpiece of the 1980s big box retail movement model, has fallen on hard times. In recent years, as the growing dominance of e-commerce has finally started to take a toll on brick-and-mortar retailers, a subject that we frequently discuss. I can attest to that. I've used several Zero Hedges articles about the retail space in my videos. Shifting consumption patterns, i.e. dawn of e-commerce, years of underinvestment by mall owners, and a seemingly unceasing stream of retail bankruptcies are the factors that have been responsible for most of the damage to mall REITs, particularly products tied to lower quality malls. Emptying storefronts and malls have only exacerbated glut American retail space. The country now has roughly 24 square feet of retail space per capita, more than twice that of Australia and 5 times that of the UK. And you can see, I love charts. See that here. In April, we talked about the breakneck speed with which retail shopping space was closing. Retail real estate carnage is continuing this year with no signs of slowing up, as Bloomberg reported in April that over 77 million square feet of retail estate has closed this year, and that 2008 will easily pass 2017's record of 105 million square feet closed. The latest example was the fall of the once massive Toys R Us name. Now, I've talked about Toys R Us before. Toys R Us U.S. chain with more than 700 U.S. stores shows how much retail has changed in just the last decade when KKR and Company, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty Trust took over the company in 2005. The buyers justified the $7.5 billion price in part because of supposedly valuable properties that came with the deal. Right. We also know that the price of such properties was tanking. If there was ever to be any silver lining in the complete carnage of the retail real estate space. It was an argument that has been perpetuated over the last decade or so. Despite retail stores closing, the real estate would eventually be worth something. Arguments made by real estate investment trusts as well as activist investors and analysts who try to put a positive spin on the depth of brick and mortar retail. Now, with more space freeing up, the bid for more retail properties is at an axe of falling off as supply is starting to get far ahead of demand. I can attest to that too. This baby RS going out of business is actually not too far from me, and I haven't seen any signs of what they're going to do to replace it. I'm sure eventually it will come to a point, but it's still a sad sign to see. Real estate can put a floor under the value of retail and make it easier for the company to borrow. Maybe a particular store concept doesn't work out as consumers' tastes change, but in that case, investors can always sell the land and building to someone with a better plan. Long-term leases can be similarly valued, but what if that problem isn't that a particular store is out of fashion, but that the consumers are just shopping less at brick and mortar retailers in general? As more storefronts empty, the valuation floor will look wobblier. The story of Alexandria should come as no surprise to anyone who's been following brick and mortar retail, watching it get torched by online competitors, mostly Amazon.com. Unfortunately, as time goes on, the reality only gets more desperate for brick and mortar retail and its former employees at a time when many consider that the decimation of brick and mortar may finally be ending. It appears that it's only just beginning. There you go, folks. Could you imagine in your city, if you actually live in it, or a Macys becoming especially in the prominent areas, where North Virginia is, one supposed to be one of the richest areas in the United States, becoming a homeless shelter. If this doesn't show you that we're living in different times, I don't know what to tell you. If this video has been any value to you, please subscribe, leave some comments. Until my next video, keep getting your mind in the right place. I'm out.